Let's bring you more on our main story of the day, and it's the fourth day of the Israeli offensive against Gaza. The number of dead and injured continues to rise. But the Israeli army says Hamas is using the civilians as human shields. Now here, we've got some video that's been released by the Israeli military, and it shows an airstrike on Gaza. Israeli forces first fire that warning shot, saying this allows people to leave the building. And you can see people fleeing here. But then we see people running back towards the building that's just been targeted. Now, the Israeli military says that this is Hamas telling people to go onto the roof so that they can then be used as human shields. The army says it didn't fire on the building to avoid civilian casualties, but the number of victims is still growing by the day. We've got more than 100 people now killed in Gaza during Operation Protective Edge, and at least 24 of those have been children, with 12 women also amongst the victims. Joining us now from Beirut is Osama Hamdan. He's a spokesman for Hamas. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us there from Beirut. Why did those people in that video run back towards the building? Was it under the orders of Hamas?
Well, I have to say that the Israelis are trying to say that Hamas is using the civilians as shields, while in fact the Israelis are targeting the civilians in order to make a huge pressure on Hamas resistance and on the fighters in the field, because they are targeting the houses and the women and the children.
There is no doubt that they are targeting houses, cafes, mosques. We know that. But in this video particularly, they did fire a warning shot. That gives people time to flee those buildings, and then we see them returning. Why do we see them returning?
Well, as I have to say also, that was on the first day only. From the second day, there were no warning shots. They were just bombing the houses directly. And the video which the Israelis are trying to show, they shot between two houses. The people were in the first one, so they ran to the second one. They expected that the attack will be on the first house, and then the attack was on the second one. So it's not fair to say that they have shot to warn the Palestinians in a civilian neighborhood, where no one knows what will be the next target.
You do say that the warning shots were only given in the first couple of days, but yesterday there was a similar situation in Khan Yunis where 8 members of one family were killed by an Israeli attack. Now, Israel again says that it warned those people to leave that house.
Well, there was no warning, and I believe the Israelis are trying to target the civilians on purpose in order to make pressure on Hamas that the civilians are being killed.
But there's no denying, is it? There's no denying, sorry to interrupt, but there is no denying that Hamas is firing from the Gaza Strip, and we all know that this is a very heavily populated area. So why is Hamas firing from within a civilian population that is then liable to be targeted?
Well, this is a good question, because by all the bombing on Gaza, killing the civilians, there was no militants killed, there was no rockets destroyed, there was no bases destroyed. The Israelis are claiming that they are bombing the centers where Hamas is launching the rockets and the other resistance movements, while at the result, only the civilians are killed. No destruction for what they are claiming they are working to destroy.
Again, that's not strictly true, is it? Because we do have a number of militants killed, according perhaps to the Israeli, but we also know that the leader of Islamic Jihad was killed a couple of days ago. So there are militants being targeted and killed in this.
There are militants who was being killed. They are fighting, but those militants, they were not being killed in the houses which was bombed. They were killed in the field. They were killed by bombing the cars while they were driving, or motorcycles. So there was no militants being killed in the houses of the Palestinians. All the people who were killed in the houses, they were civilians, mostly women and children. And only the militants were killed in the field. So this is the idea. They are trying to fight in the field. They couldn't achieve their goals, so they tend to bomb the houses in order to make pressure on Hamas and the resistance movements.
Why is Hamas firing these rockets into Gaza? What is it trying to achieve?
Well, the question why is the occupation is still on the Palestinian lands and why the occupiers launched their attack against Gaza. Everyone knows that there was a ceasefire agreement 2012, and everyone knows that Hamas and the Palestinian resistance movements, they respected the ceasefire. The one who violated the ceasefire was the Israeli side, and Hamas, the other factions, reacted against this violation. It's normally to react against the Israeli violations.
But again,
Otherwise,
what is Hamas's endgame here? What is it hoping to achieve? Is it hoping to reach another ceasefire deal?
well, I think the Israelis thought for a while that they can violate the ceasefire, they can attack Gaza without a response from Hamas or the resistance, because they felt that that Gaza under the siege cannot resist their violations and their attacks. Here, the clear situation, we are resisting, we are still standing, and we will. And if there was a ceasefire under a clear conditions for the benefit of the Palestinians, this will be discussed at the moment. And if there were not, we will continue targeting the Israeli army and the Israeli settlers.
Okay.
And I believe Israel will not live with that forever.
Okay. One last question. President Abbas has called on Hamas to stop the rocket fire, or called on the militant groups in Gaza, of course it's not just Hamas, to stop rocket fire. Now that Hamas has joined the unity government, doesn't it have an obligation to abide that call?
Well, the unity government is supposed to help the Palestinians. The unity government is supposed to protect the Palestinians. Mahmoud Abbas is supposed to call for stopping the Israeli attack against the Palestinians, instead of saying the rockets must not be launched against the Israelis. I believe the responsibility of the Palestinian political leadership is to stop the Israeli attack against the Palestinians, is to work on the political levels to make that possible, and to make the withdrawal of the Israelis from our occupied lands possible, not to work against the resistance or against the will of the Palestinian people.
Osama Hamdan, thank you very much for joining us there from Beirut.
Thank you.